Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm your presenter, Derek Sobrian, and we're going to be starting the webinar shortly. We're just waiting for a few more people to arrive, but go ahead and make yourselves comfortable. I see 39 attendees in here, so we'll be starting in a minute or two. Our presentation for today. We're going to look at Azure Synapse and look at how that fits into the idea of building out the modern data warehouse. So my name is Derek Sobrian. I'm going to be presenting today. And just to start things off, I'd like to talk a little bit about Wintellect. So Wintellect is a consulting company. They've established a really great reputation in the world of IT. They are a training provider. They're also a cloud service provider. They provide managed services. One of the things I found out recently was that Microsoft, one of the many things that Wintellect does is trains Microsoft developers. They've been doing this for the last 10, 15 years, and it's ranked very highly amongst training vendors. Wintellect also is a co-author of many IT publications, so literally wrote the book on many technologies that you will see in Microsoft Press and other publishers. So our agenda today is going to be the components of a modern data warehouse. And data warehousing has been around for quite a long time. It has a history in some places with SQL databases and just the growth and sprawl of data that required people to create larger data stores and then also to chop it up into data marts so you can analyze it for decision making. So we look at the path that you're on. We'll start trying to see where, how you can gauge where you fit on that journey. Then we'll zero in on Azure Synapse Analytics. Synapse has been in public preview for the last year. There are over 100 users already, even when it was in preview mode. And then more recently, it's gone into general availability, along with Purview for data governance. So we'll look at Azure Synapse as a tool in the data warehousing world. And we'll also look at how to analyze and how to visualize your data and get actionable insights by using Power BI. So let's first talk about where you are on the journey. So this is the curve that you find happening with organizations. So you want to think about where your organization is on that curve. And as we look at the increase in value on the X and Y axis, we see that the value and difficulty have a direct relationship. So BI, or business intelligence, is the beginning of how we work towards maximizing the value of our data. And then as you work towards understanding more business questions, such as why did things happen, or how we can make certain things happen, this is where it's critical to bring in BI and analytics, and sometimes to combine them. So now that we've seen sort of the use case for the modern day data warehouse, why don't we pick it apart and go into some of its components? So here we're looking at the data warehouse, and we'll describe how a data warehouse serves a business through that simple architectural diagram. The modern data warehouse sits at the heart of enterprise analytics as a source of sanctioned data, as a system of record, and as a hub serving models for reporting, business intelligence, and data science. Now you'll notice quite a few moving parts in this diagram. And Microsoft has several tools that will fit into the landscape of constructing a data warehouse or even moving your current data warehouse from on-premises to the cloud. And you're seeing several of those components here: Data Factory, Databricks, SQL as being one of the data stores, Data Lake as a store for big data. And there are other technologies like storage accounts. But with these many moving parts, what Microsoft noticed was that there wasn't really one common tool that would help you touch all of these different components. So that's where Azure Synapse Analytics comes in. So Synapse Analytics is a single point that you can use to touch all of those technologies that make up your data warehouse. So let's take a deeper look at the setup of Azure Synapse. So as you can see here, it's designed for analytic workloads, including AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, intelligent apps, and business intelligence at any scale. Synapse Studio, which is the main user interface for Azure Synapse, provides a unified workplace for data prep, data management, data warehousing, big data, and AI tasks. It's a software as a service developer experience for code-free and code-first. So here we're seeing Azure Synapse and its various components. And at the base of this, you're seeing data lake storage, and that's capable of talking to the common data model. It has features for enterprise security, and it's optimized for analytics. Going up through the stack, you'll see facilities for data integration. And later on, we'll look at how to actually break down the data part of Synapse. It's capable of running SQL either in serverless form or as SQL Pools. And then it's able to use Apache Spark as a well-known industry standard for an alternative data store. Synapse Spark can be used for big data processing with Python, Scala, R, and .NET. And Synapse SQL offers T-SQL for batch streaming and interactive processing. Further up through the stack, you'll see support for various languages. And then there's Synapse Studio at the top, which you would open separately when we get into the Azure portal. Another thing you'll notice here is that it's built on Azure. So Synapse integrates with other Azure services as well as third-party applications. So on the right-hand side, you'll see some other well-known Azure services like Azure Data Catalog, Data Lake Storage, Data Share, Databricks, HD Insight for Hadoop, Azure Machine Learning, and Power BI. Of course, each of these product lines is a world by itself. And what we're trying to do is at a very high level, show how these can be integrated and pulled into Synapse Analytics environment. So Azure Synapse Analytics, when you actually open the main tool, will have these 6 sections in it. So there'll be an overview section. There's a section where you actually create your data warehouse, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. But there are also some other components that you might be able to drill down into in future presentations. So in the develop area, you're able to open things like Jupyter Notebooks for machine learning and training, SQL scripts. You can create data flows. one of the great advantages that you get in Synapse is the ability to create integration pipelines. So many of these other services that we saw before in the previous slide are available as individual Azure offerings. What's great though with Synapse is it's giving you the ability to bring them all together in a single workspace area. As you create those warehouse and analytics jobs, some of them may be quite compute intensive. Some of your jobs may also run over a long period of time. So that's where the Monitor Hub comes in. So you can look at those machine learning or analytics jobs, and then you can keep an eye on what's in progress, what workloads have been spun up in the background to make those jobs happen, and keep a big picture and orchestrate the work. There's also a management hub. So let's focus in on the component of Azure Synapse that's going to let you work with data, and that's called the Data Hub. So here's a screenshot showing you what the Synapse Analytics workspace looks like. So normally you would log into your Azure portal and then create a workspace. And then when you've created your Azure Synapse workspace, it opens in a separate browser tab. And on the left, you'll see the navigation that I described earlier. So you've got an overview section where you can get a big picture on all of the moving parts of your analytics solution. And then the data is where you would either construct the data warehouse, or you can use this to view existing data sources. And as you can see, there are three types of data sources there. So a typical type of object storage in the Azure cloud is called a storage account. And that's capable of storing binary large objects or blobs, and also file storage in SMB or NFS. You also have databases, and that can expand and pull in databases that you've created either on-prem or in the cloud, and running either as a SQL workload or as a virtualized cloud service. We also have data sets, and data sets can be models that you can use for visualization. So after selecting the Data Hub, you can expand the Storage Accounts option to view the storage accounts in the workspace. And then after selecting a storage account, you can create new folders and upload files using the links in the right-hand window. So it's giving you some of the familiar functionality that you would have in Storage Explorer. Storage Explorer, of course, is a standalone downloadable utility that you can use to talk to your Azure storage objects. But now it's giving you that same functionality combined with these other tools. So you don't have to be hopping around between different tools to manage your storage. Moving on in the Data Hub, here we're seeing how you can expand out the database portion. So the Data Lake service is up to generation 2. And if you had a Data Lake store, you could be in the Synapse workspace, and you can just open up that Data Lake store. And there you've got a couple of different folders and components that are created in your container file system. And one of the things that we do in the longer workshop is we use worldwide importers as a data source. So Azure Synapse comes with quite a large collection of sample data. Anything from weather data to sales data. One of the workshops we run uses information that was gathered over a year of using taxis in New York. There are lots of different sources of data that you can use to practice your skills in Synapse Analytics, and then also run machine learning against those data lakes. So this is the part of the data hub that allows you to explore and even query the data lake. So if you have storage accounts, they can be opened in this part of the data hub. And you can use that as the basis for a new notebook. You can even manage the names of those storage accounts. And then some of these are used as tools inside of Synapse Analytics as well. So you can select the container or file system, choose a specific file, right-click and select Preview to sample the data all in one place. So this allows you to manage access and configure standard POSIX ACLs on files and folders. There's the Manage Access component and the Azure Active Directory-based security layer. This is also showing you storage accounts where you can analyze SQL scripts or notebooks with 2 simple actions. This is also capable of auto-generating Transact SQL or PySpark scripts for you. So an added advantage of being in the Synapse workspace is auto-generation of scripts. So you can manage fine-grained access and control the access control lists by right-clicking on your files or folders and selecting Manage. And then we can auto-generate with just a right-click. As far as databases are concerned, you can bring together your data lake, your data warehouse, and big data analytics all in the same hub. So here we are in the data hub, and when you expand databases, you'll see the SQL pool. So for branding reasons, Microsoft used to call this SQL pool the data warehouse. So now when you create a dedicated pool, that's pretty much a drop-in replacement for what used to be called DW in previous incarnations of this tool. You also have SQL on demand. So this actually runs as a cloud service in a similar technology that Azure Functions work in. And you just pay as you use it. So when the queries are being run, you get charged on demand. And when the queries are not being run, then you don't get charged. So that whole idea of serverless compute has made its way over into the data warehouse. Now you can also have dedicated SQL pools, and what's not shown here also, oh, actually it is shown, is the Spark. So right now in this setup, the Spark, Apache Spark is the default. So let's have a quick look at how this would present itself inside of the Azure portal. So I'm just logging into the Azure portal here. And I'll just use a previous version of this. So what I did to create this demo was went in and downloaded some sample data from Microsoft's Cloud Workshop on Azure Synapse and AI. So let's just go ahead and log in to the Azure portal. And what's great is that in the cloud workshop, Microsoft has sort of scripted out a workspace for you already. So this workspace is called Synapse MCW for Microsoft Cloud Workshop. And it's something that we do as a more detailed view of this. So I know people coming to these webinars come from different backgrounds. Some of you might be seeing or touching Synapse for the first time. Others of you might be specialists working in the data arena. So this is the sample that is created as part of that cloud workshop. So you'll see some of the components here. One of them, I'll just zoom in on it for you, is the machine learning workspace. So that opens in a separate tab, and machine learning has its own visual tool. You'll see application insights here. There's also a data lake that's created as part of that project. There's a key vault for storing your secrets. There's another storage account. And then here's the Synapse workspace. There's also the Spark pool, and then the dedicated SQL pool. So this is what used to be called DW, and now Microsoft has rebranded. And what's great about this is each of these components is accessible as a separate entity or as a separate Azure service. But when you open up the Synapse workspace, you get access to all of these inside this single tool. What I've also loaded up here is a machine learning example. So here's another example of a workspace that was created. And you can tell it to create these data warehouses or these data warehouse components by default. So that's an example of the various components that will make up your Synapse environment. Now, zeroing in on the data warehouse part of this, you've got three options for databases. So let's take a moment and drill down into each of these options. So the first option is your Synapse SQL. And that's where it's a dedicated pool. And it also allows you to run T-SQL queries in a specialized form against the data warehouse. So you're seeing an example of that. And Synapse deeply integrates with Power BI and Azure Machine Learning to drive insights for all users, from data scientists coding with statistics to business users with Power BI. So what's being shown here is the native predict statement. So with that native predict statement, you can score machine learning models within your data warehouse. See, that avoids the need for large and complex data movement. And part of the modern data warehouse, you're finding those components almost kind of working side by side. So there's the storage aspect of Synapse. There is the processing and pipeline aspect of it, where the information is ingested and then you're running machine learning against it to make predictive insights. And then there's the presentation of those insights in a visual form, and that's where Power BI comes in. So you've also got native SQL streaming. So we've enabled direct streaming ingestion support and the ability to execute analytical queries over streaming data. So that's one of the areas that you can do either in SQL or in Spark. And the idea is that data might be generated at such a high rate that you can't wait to store it and then analyze it. So a whole practice has now evolved around running queries against streaming data. And essentially how it works is you'll create a window, you'll have the data coming out at a very high rate. So we're mentioning here throughput ingestion up to 200 megabytes per second. And you could tell it to select a start time and a stop time, and then create a window of data that then you can now query in real time. So Synapse Analytics helps you to have one space that you can do that, either in the SQL world or in the Apache Spark world. So we also have workload-aware query execution. So workload management helps you control and prioritize your workloads. And then you can use this feature to have granular control on how your workloads are being run, or how you allocate resources to the different users based on the importance of their queries. So there you see the sales information being ingested. And we often measure compute power in the data warehousing world in processing units. So that way you can track back what's actually being used as far as Azure resources, and then control your costs. You can see more by scaling to petabytes. So you're practically given limitless data storage ability. And the materialized views give you a new level of insight by adding transactional consistency to data modification and automatic query optimizer matching. This helps you to build confidence in your data with the result set cache. So when result set caching is enabled, Azure Synapse automatically caches query results in the user database for repetitive use. This allows subsequent query executions to get results directly from the persisted cache, so recomputation is not needed. Microsoft also boasts the most secure data warehouse in the cloud. So we've got multiple levels of security between user and the data warehouse. This keeps your data safe and secure. While some of our competition charges for different levels of security, Microsoft won't. Microsoft offers one comprehensive security plan at no additional cost. And if you dive deeper into the features, you'll see in this diagram, it's got threat protection providers, so you can get notified of potential threats with auditing tools and anomalous activity alerting. You can leverage network security to ensure that all the data within your data warehouse is secure. You can centrally manage and control identity and user access with Cloud Identity and Azure Active Directory. You can put in row and column level security, giving you more granular access control, and you'll find that in highly compliant environments. Your data is protected at rest, in transit, and in use. Let's now have a look at the serverless option for storage. So with Azure SQL Serverless, you can support a couple of use cases and scenarios. So you can do discovery and exploration and find out what's in a file, how many rows are there, what are the maximum values, and it reduces the data lake exploration that's required. You also have data transformation. So this shows you, or it can be used to let you convert comma separated variable to Parquet, and maybe you want to do that quickly. So those of you who are going to come to the one-day workshop that we do, we have several data sources that we explore, including flat files, regular SQL data storage, and Parquet. And maybe you might ask how you might want to transform that raw data. And as you can see, you've got the full power of T-SQL, Transact SQL on your data lake. So here's SQL Serverless. And as an overview, you can get an interactive query service that provides transact SQL queries over high scale in Azure Storage. And the benefits here are that you can process that on demand. There's no pre-built infrastructure that you have to think about. It's essentially running like a function. We pay only for the query execution. There's no extract, transform, and load. It's familiar to people who already know Transact SQL. It supports data in various formats, including Parquet, comma-separated variable, and JSON. So many of the analytic workloads that we might have would be scraping other websites, both inside your organization and outside. JSON is a very popular format that developers use. It's also great for structured text, and it tends to be a lot more efficient compared to XML or others. And there's support there for the business intelligence ecosystem. Let's talk a little bit about Spark. So Apache Spark has really carved a space in the data warehousing industry, especially for streaming analytics. And Synapse allows you to create and configure notebooks. Notice here, you can create notebooks using multiple languages right there in one notebook. So that's quite unique. So how that's done is within your notebook, and you'll see a few of them in that screenshot on the right, you can use that $% identify the language, and then put in a code block in your language of choice. And that's another aspect of the modern data warehouse that really wasn't a problem that you had earlier on. Now we're pulling from many disparate sources. We might be combining little programs and scripts that we've written in multiple languages. So you're seeing support there for PySpark, rooted in Python, for Scala, for .NET, where if you think in C#, there's a home for you, and also Spark SQL. So as the notebook cell runs, the underlying Apache Spark application status is shown, and that provides immediate feedback and progress tracking. So let's look a little bit at the integration features that are offered with Azure Synapse. So within the Synapse Studio, there is also the Develop Hub. So the Develop Hub can support SQL scripts. You can either use it to author your scripts, which is great to be able to actually do that right there in your browser. You can execute scripts that you've copied and pasted or imported, and you can execute them against the SQL pool or against your serverless base. And then you can publish individual SQL scripts or multiple scripts through the Publish All feature. And that allows you to start coding faster and use the language of your choice. To view the query results, you can do that with one click directly within the Develop Hub, and then you can just click Preview. So that allows you to get a view of your data either in tabular form or graphically. So you're seeing an example of that, a graph at the top and a tabular display at the bottom. So it's kind of giving you a precursor to what you would visualize in Power BI. But it's, again, you don't have to leave this tool. You can sit right there in Synapse Analytics. Now, if you wanted to export that, you have the choice of exporting to comma-separated variable or CSV or JSON files. And then you can use tools like Power Query and Excel even before you get to the end visualization in Power BI. In the Develop Hub, you have the ability to create these data flows. So as part of our workshop, you would build these from scratch. You know, when some of you might choose to come to the detailed one day. So we'll get a chance to create these data flows. The data flows often have a sanity check, so it'll validate if you're asking it to create a flow that makes sense. It is branchable, so you can create branches in your flow. You can create joins, conditional splits. You can run select statements. You can even do data flow debugging, and then try the flow out and troubleshoot it there on the fly. So this is one of those aspects of Synapse Analytics that you probably you couldn't do if you went to the individual components. So the data warehouse might have those various data stores, or the notebooks can run by themselves in machine learning, even the batch jobs. But these integrations here, that's kind of unique to the Synapse Analytics work environment. So this is certainly one of the pieces that it brings to the table. So you can go from writing SQL scripts and back to your own data flows with one click. You can take advantage of the code-free experience, even without having to leave the different ETL tools. Now, once you get to the point where you're trying to get actionable insights and visualize this for your decision makers, that's where Power BI comes in. So the Develop Hub gives you direct access to create Power BI reports. Now, Power BI is a downloadable tool. You can edit reports and create them right there in the browser, or you can download the Power BI tool as a standalone on your desktop. But isn't it great to be able to create those visualizations right there in Synapse Analytics? And that's exactly what it allows you to do. So you can bring in your Power BI workspace within minutes by adding it as a linked service. It is as simple as selecting the icon, putting it in the workspace information, and now you're going from data ingestion to data visualization in one analytics platform. So let's spend a little time looking closer at Power BI. So here's where you can accelerate business value with a powerful analytics platform. Power BI and Azure Data Services unlock big data in a way that would otherwise have been impossible. As previously mentioned, it is not uncommon for companies today to have petabytes of data across the organization. Analyzing and extracting insights from such massive amounts of data used to take hours, if not days. Not so with Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics. Using direct query, you can take advantage of Azure Synapse's industry-leading performance right from Power BI without limits on concurrency. BI is more than just reporting and dashboards. It enables interactive data exploration, self-service analytics, predictive analytics, and machine learning, and prescriptive analytics as well. So here's a screenshot showing Azure Synapse working together with Power BI. And notice we're in the Synapse tool, and we're in the sort of analytics area, and we've created a Power BI visualization. And on the right-hand side of this, you're seeing the types of visualizations that you can choose, the fields that you can use, and then the drill throughs that you can include as slicers and dicers for the information. And sometimes you want to do this yourself, but sometimes you want to put that ability in the hands of the decision makers and the consumers of your reports. So here's where we did a drill down, and you can slice according to specific fields like holiday name and number of trips in this case. Just to zero in on the Power BI visual, you can be in Synapse Analytics, and when you've refined it and you're ready to publish, you can save it and then publish it out in Power BI and make it available to your internet or intranet users. So let's have a closer look at Power BI. And in my PowerPoints that we're going to make available at the end of this, you'll have links to this website. So this is an actual live website that you can go to, and you can see shopping habits that were being monitored, and then suggestions that were being made to this user. So here I'm logged in as this particular user, Daryl, and then the AI and analytics in the background are making recommendations for that user based on previous observed behavior or other people's selections. And this site is quite flexible. You can actually add items to your shopping cart. You can go to the shopping cart. You can even log in as different users, and you can see how it picks up on the insights and buying patterns of those users as well. You can also go to the order history, look at deals that were constructed for that user. And then let's go to the marketplace. So this is where Power BI comes in handy. So it's gone into the background, and it's allowing you to do user product ranking. So it's essentially looking at the purchasing history and giving you recommendations on the products that are selling the most. You can even put a slider in here using Power BI, and then it can just clip it off at products that were higher than a certain ranking. We can also filter here by specific product. So instead of selecting all, I can select by product numbers, and then I can just on the fly slice or filter that. And then this is also interactive, so I can zero in on what's happening with specific lines. All of this done in Power BI. The second sample report here is top 10 products sold. And again, you can filter the revenue target, or you can filter by product name. And notice as I click on the left-hand side here, it's interactively giving me the total sales just for that product. So as I mentioned, the link to this live site is available, and this is all using Azure Synapse Analytics on the back end, and then presenting that to the users on the front end with Power BI. Of course, if you spend some more time with us in the longer workshop, we can show you how to author those reports. The authoring process involves these 8 or so steps. So you start off with using the live connection and creating the data set. We saw that the data sets are also accessible inside of Synapse Analytics. Then you would create a data set connection. And notice again, you've got Synapse Studio, Power BI service in your browser or the Power BI desktop. You would add and configure the report or page filters. Then you can add in report elements. And there are lots of built-in visuals that come with Power BI, but it's also a marketplace. So other vendors have taken their own visualizations and made them available to you through Power BI at their premium add-on. So here are some of the visual elements. And you can choose slicers, cards for displaying numerical values, graphically visualize data with combos and scatter, waterfall, pies, spatially visualize the data with maps. So a lot of people like geospatial data being used to help you understand geographically how things are happening. You can also add and configure elements with the visuals. You can put in analytics to give you trends, maximum, minimum, plot the best straight line, give you medians and percentiles, and even help you forecast. The slicers can be very useful for just zeroing in maybe on a particular year or a particular time frame. So anything that you use as a dimension in a cube, you can use as a slicer in Power BI. And some of you come from that world where you already use analytics cubes and maybe analysis services, SQL Server analysis services on the back end. So you can bring those in now as slicers for your information workers. You can also add in formatting elements and put in styles and themes. Add additional pages. So often people, decision makers, like to have an engine room view at the top, and then they like to be able to click and drill down into things that are deserving of their attention. So that's it for our presentation on Azure Synapse and Power BI. Of course, you may want to go further with this. So we do have a one-day follow-on workshop called Azure Synapse Analytics, Cloud Analytics in the Age of Self-Service Data Science. So we've got that happening on February 5th, and it's very reasonably priced. If you want to get more details, there's a link in our slide pack, or you can just email us at Wintellect using the email training. Based on a previous seminar, we've also got a one-day workshop on .NET modernization. So in that workshop, we're looking at how to take your existing web presence and then modernize that using Azure services and come from, it's not just .NET, it actually can handle other platforms and other frameworks as well. So stay tuned for that. There are also related Microsoft official courses that we offer. So the DP series is a way to drill down deeper into data processing, data warehousing. We have other courses on machine learning and AI. Wintellect also has a library of self-service training that's available called Wintellect Now. And within that, you've got a couple of collections. Of interest to you might be Wintellect Data Science, Machine Learning, or Spark. And I've given you a link here for the Machine Learning Solution Accelerator, which looks at several different training models. So for questions, I'm going to pull up in a couple of seconds a Menti where we can sort of interactively get some feedback, but you can also email your questions to webinar@wintellect.com and have some of our subject matter experts get back to you. And I've also got a series of links here, including the website that you just saw, Microsoft's own Analytics in a Day workshop, and also the launch for Purview and the general availability for Synapse link right there at the bottom. So I had fun looking at that live. It just happened about a week ago. And the CEO, Satya, brought in his own internal Microsoft team, and they talked about how they use Synapse Analytics to analyze their ERP solution. So just to, since I've got you here for another couple of minutes, I thought, and this is completely optional, but if you want to hang around with us, I do have a little interactive tool that can, help us to see what we learned in this workshop, and also get a gauge of what would be some other kinds of workshops that you might be interested in. So to participate in this, like I say, it's completely optional, but if you'd like to, go ahead and click on menti.com. So in your browser, just open a separate tab and go to menti.com and enter this code 5517224, or you can scan that QR code with your smartphone. And it's pretty easy. You can actually participate in this using your smartphone or tablet as well. You don't have to just use your computer. And let's see if I can put up a few little questions. So this one, if you log in, again, the Menti code is on the top there. It's 5517224. And normally I can tell if people have logged in, because then they start clicking these lovely icons at the bottom here. So Microsoft does this a lot. You know, when they have online webinars, there's a sort of a constant flow of participation, and I like using this tool as well. Oh yeah, so I see a couple of people are clicking on what looks like a cat, or it could just be you know, it rocks. So we're kind of getting some feedback on your background with Synapse Analytics and your fandom, so to speak. Great stuff. So let's forge ahead here. So now that you're in, let's see who you are. So maybe you can help us select your job title. So it'll give you a couple of options there. So I kind of guessed, you know, some of the people who might be interested in this topic and selected a few possibilities. So I'm seeing there are about 6 or 7 of you participating, and feel free to join in. All you have to do is go to menti.com, click and type in this code 5517224. So I'm seeing that I probably got it right. There's one person who said other. So if you selected other, maybe here you can type in what your job role is. So I'm giving you an opportunity to do that. Maybe I just didn't put enough options there to guess who you are. Okay, so at least one person answered that. And we can always make these available to you as well. So here's where I'm actually polling you a little bit about what you learned in this webinar. So feel free, like I say, to join in. I'll just take a sip of something while you're joining. And you can stay anonymous. You can take the name that Menti gives you, or you can put your name in there. Totally up to you. So let's see what we learned here. I'm going to start a little countdown, and we'll ask a few questions based on the things that we learned in this presentation. Power BI can only use Azure SQL as a data source. Huh. So is that a true statement, or is it false? Yeah, you got it. So yeah, it turns out that Power BI can use many data sources, both on-prem and in the cloud. And it can even use things like Excel spreadsheets, flat files, and obviously SQL databases. So it creates something called a data set. And it looks like Viking was our fastest, but you pretty much all answered it about the same time. Identify data sources that can be used in Azure Synapse. So the Menti should give you a couple of options. I'm not timing this. I'm just kind of checking in on what you remembered. Yeah, it turns out that all of these are legitimate sources of data. So it can be SQL Serverless, a storage account in object storage, can be data lake at the base, or a data set that you would use for Power BI. Good work. Azure Synapse Analytics can run Jupyter notebooks. So those of you who are in the machine learning world, it's a great tool to be able to spin up a Jupyter notebook, and you can run it pretty much in any cloud. But it's great that Synapse lets you do that. Yes, the answer is true. And one of the workshops that we do actually pre-populates the workbooks for you, so you pretty much just run them interactively, and then it trains the model This particular one uses shopping patterns at a grocery, and then learns which fruit and products are getting the most attention. All right, so yeah, Viking somehow still keeping that lead, but Zlatan is the fastest clicker. Let's keep going. Answer fast to get more points. Azure Synapse Analytics is at the only data analyst. Oh, I see. It's the only data analysis tool offered by Microsoft. So is that a true or false statement? And if you're an Azure subscriber or enterprise agreement owner, you'll probably know this off the top of your head. Others of you might be newer to Azure, so there's good new information here. Yeah, so it turns out that Microsoft has I should have done that the other way. Has several data analysis tools. So there are other ones. So you were actually correct. Let me just fix that there. So yes, the correct answer was false. Yeah, let's see who got that. Wow, somehow Viking is able to keep that lead in there. So this is really just kind of gauging these statements. Azure Synapse on Azure Synapse Analytics. Do you agree or disagree with these statements? It's the best way to integrate and centrally orchestrate, control the elements of your modern data warehouse. Is it the only way to access data lake? You're correct. Yeah, there are other ways. Can it be used to create interactive data visualizations? Sure. And which was one of the big benefits of it being a one-stop shop. And yes, it can be used to access and train machine learning models. Super, yeah, great participation there. So I see 5 of you have joined the party. And that one wasn't really timed, I don't think. Oh, okay. So if there was a winner of this whole thing, it was Viking. So congratulations, Viking, whoever you are. You are the victor in Synapse Analytics. And you've got a little spray of confetti there. So let's let's learn a little bit more about your interest. Are you interested in more training on Synapse and MDW? Looks like there are a few of you there who are expressing an interest. And also I wanted to sort of gauge, okay, more people responding on that. And then we wanted to gauge as well what type and level of training would interest you the most. So on the one axis here, we have technical, and you have tech levels. So often with the workshops that we do, it's anything from level 100, where you're kind of a newbie to the technology and you've never touched it before, all the way up to 300 and 400, where you're pretty much a subject matter expert, but you're just trying to top up your skills. And then there's also big picture type workshops where you don't necessarily want to go technical deep dive, but you want to get an overall picture of what's happening in that topic. And I've tried to identify future topics for you. So we have workshops on Synapse itself. We can separate out Power BI. We can do machine learning and AI and deep learning. We have workshops on storage, on Databricks, on Data Factory, on Polybase. So yeah, based on your responses, I'm seeing Synapse in sort of that quadrant there, where people seem to be interested in sort of more the big picture of that. And generally speaking, it looks like it's clustered around more technical based on our attendance today. And this is allowing you to select multiple topics. So feel free to click on several of those if you feel like you have an interest in that. Okay, so thanks very much, folks, for participating. That's great feedback, and we can use that information to guide some of the workshops that we're planning for the rest of the year. We're hoping for a year of workshops, and we're planning to run these pretty much once a month. So it's good to have this information to choose topics that'll keep people engaged. So thanks so much for that feedback. And of course, again, if you have specialized questions, feel free to email that address, and we'll have our subject matter experts get back to you with specific answers to your questions from today's webinars. All right, well, thanks so much for attending, folks. I look forward to seeing some of you in the new year at our more detailed one-day workshop. And at this point, I'm going to sign off of audio, and I'll bid you adieu. Thanks for attending.